customers are very important to us. Please hold on, and our program will begin shortly. The Soundcheck podcast is coming up. Please continue to hold. Keep up with the Soundcheck podcast and everything that's happening in the New Sounds empire. Just go to newsounds.org and follow us on social media. All of the icons are in the top right corner of the page. All of our other musicians are currently playing for other customers. Please stay with us, and someone will play for you in just a moment. From newsounds.org and the studios of WNYC in New York, welcome to another live performance in our Soundcheck podcast series. Streaming live on Facebook and YouTube, I'm John Schaefer. The Dutch pianist and composer Joep Beving is signed to the world's most prestigious classical music label, Deutsche Grammophon, but his streaming numbers are more like those of a pop star. With almost 300 million streams on Spotify alone, Joep Beving is one of the biggest figures in instrumental music. And at nearly 6'10", he's just one of the biggest figures in music, period. He's released 3 albums of mostly solo piano, and he's going to play for us today one piece from each of those 3 records. Here, with a work called A Bovo, is Joep Beving. That is Joep Beving, the Dutch composer and pianist, live in our studio, and a piece called Ab Ovo, Latin for, well, literally from the egg,
Correct.
although in English we generally translate it as from the beginning, from the start. And that's a beautiful way to start off your set today, Joep. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I checked this morning, and that track, just that song, has been streamed on Spotify about 45 million times.
That's incredible.
It is incredible. It's from your second record, Prehension,
Yeah.
which went gold back in 2017. So by that point, you knew that you had tapped into something.
Mm-hmm.
Have you figured out what it is that you've tapped into? What are people responding to?
That's the golden question, and it's obviously for me difficult to answer that. Although I do think about it, obviously, I don't really know. I think I've tried to strip things down to the bare essence, and without too much polishing, and basically trying to make that something that's beautiful and not too pretentious and easy to recognize. And I think a lot it resonates with people because they recognize something in it, and what that is, I don't know.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that's for you to maybe guess or talk about, but I'm very thankful that it is the case, and I don't have a formula, so I don't know if it will just stop at one point in the future.
Mm-hmm.
I hope not.
Well, but that's always the danger when you start thinking about what is it that my audience is liking about what I do, is that you then think, all right, I need to do more of that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's not the way to go.
well, I mean, it can be it can be a
Yeah.
financially successful way to go, but it isn't always an artistically successful way
I think
to go.
there was one saying that when money enters, God leaves the room, or something.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That one. You do something because you feel like you feel like it, and it comes to you at the point that you open up to it, and you recognize that it's something of value first and foremost to yourself, and then the hope is that you're so connected to the rest that they will also like it.
Yeah, so that kind of connection, that kind of authenticity,
Yeah.
people can sense that, I guess.
Yeah.
But one of the funny things is that you didn't, you started this pretty late. You were almost 40 when that first record came out. So what was your, kind of road to Damascus moment where you said, I need to just stop working and play music?
I was working, and I knew that I wasn't exactly doing. I was doing a fun job, but I felt like it wasn't the thing I needed to be doing, and then something was cooking on the inside, and I didn't know what it was. But it led to a point of disconnect that I almost burned out, and I stayed home from work, and I sat behind the piano, and this piece came out that I'd never played before. Well, even the style I didn't really play before, and it felt like something, like I just said, like something familiar, and it had a sense of, for me at that point, truthfulness to it, and some other things happened around that time that at one point I'm like, I'm not gonna second guess this. I'm just gonna follow the music and see what comes, and that led to a point where I could just stop working.
Yeah, and concentrate on this. Now, you said you found yourself playing a kind of music you'd never played before. What had you played?
I have a bit of a jazz background, although I was never really good at it. But that's kind of like what I played in my teens and early 20s, and to the point that I couldn't really surprise myself anymore with my type of playing, and I would fall back in patterns and chord structures that were too familiar. And so I kind of quit playing for a long time. And once I did play, I noticed I was trying to leave out a lot of the notes I didn't really need. And so a bit of the pre-work unconsciously was done up to the point I just described.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Well, and so you begin playing at home, I guess, on an upright piano, because
Yep.
most people don't have room for a grand piano in their house.
Correct.
We, Joep, have room for a grand piano in our studio. You're seated about 10 feet from it, and yet you've chosen to continue to play on an upright. What is it about the upright sound that makes this instrument work for you?
Well, the way I use it, which is usually with felt between strings and hammers, is a nice, warm, comforting sound without too much shine. Let's put it that way. I like how the bass resonates in the uprights, because the grand pianos, although they're, every instrument is individual and unique, but sometimes the bass has a ringing to it that for me is too shiny and too thin in a way. And I don't know. It's like, it's where I started with, and it's quite honest, and it maybe lowers the threshold for people to relate to it.
Well, it certainly does not look like a classical pianist bestriding the stage of one of the world's great concert halls when he sits down at a little upright piano.
Yeah.
Although you have the front taken off, because you do have this kind of homemade bar of felt to kind of, as you say, dampen and warm the sound. So was this something you discovered by accident, or was this by design?
No, it was kind of by accident. The moment I described earlier, I had too much noise in my head and outside, so I preferred to put the study pedal on the piano that I inherited from my grandmother, and that produced like this really warm sound, which I really enjoyed, and it also made it possible for me to play as minimal as I did. So if I play my style of music on a grand piano, a lot of pieces tend to fall apart because you miss the sound. It's very much a sound thing as well.
Okay. It's the intimacy of the sound.
Yeah,
I see. You mentioned minimal. Are you a fan of, the American minimalists, people like Philip Glass, etc.?
Obviously. Yeah, I think Philip Glass...
Well, you say obviously, but, I also hear Eric Satie and going even further back to Chopin. I mean, it seems like, there's some of that in there as well.
Yeah, that part would be stranger because I haven't spent listening to Satie or Chopin a lot in my younger years. I did listen more to Philip Glass, I would say. And... it's been very influential to at least my point of accepting that you can use the instrument in so many different ways, and you're free to think about music as you like. So if you want to play a repetitive pattern over and over, not saying that that's what Philip Glass does, but then there's a beauty in that, and that has been very liberating. Yeah.
Well, the piece you're going to play next for us, Midwayer, this is from that first record.
That's correct.
That you did, and it's the first track from the first record.
That's correct.
So this would have been, our first impression of you would have been this.
Yes.
Would have been this piece.
I think so.
Is this an early work of yours?
It's one of the last pieces I wrote in a process of about 4 to 5 months when creating the album. And it's one of my favorite pieces to date. I don't know where it came from. It was just there, and I still love to play it. So.
Stravinsky said the same thing about Rite of Spring. Didn't know where it came from. He just sort of reached out and grabbed it.
It's amazing, right?
Yeah. I mean, it is. I mean, it just goes to show the mystery. We talk in this room with musicians and writers and other artists about their process. Sometimes you just got to throw up your hands and say, "Don't know, don't know where it came from."
That's going to make for us some very boring radio.
Joep Beving is with us here in the studio, not at our piano, but at the upright. And he's going to now play this piece called Midwayer. Once again, that's Joep Beving, the Dutch pianist and composer, and a piece called Midwayer. You'll find that on his first album called Solipsism. What was the last note there? Was that a harmonic?
That was plucking the string directly with the sustain pedal on.
Okay,
Yeah.
very nice. So it's not just that you're playing an upright piano with this special bar with felt on it.
Mm-hmm.
Your piano is also slightly tuned, slightly lower than the normal tuning.
Yeah.
Most pianos, the middle A is 440 cycles per second. Yours is 432. Why?
Why? When I released my first album, quite some people approached me, like after shows or online, saying like, "Why don't you try this different tuning?" They basically said your piano's out of tune with yourself, the world around you, and the universe, and try this
by 8 cycles per second.
Well, yeah. And I was like, okay, well, let's try it out. So I recorded 2 pieces in 440 hertz and did identical circumstances, a second recording with the piano tuned down to 432, which was the frequency that they had mentioned. And then I called in a test panel, meaning a group of friends, very sober friends. And
an important distinction.
Yes, especially in Amsterdam. And we did the listening session, and we kind of unanimously concluded that the 440 was, and you have to listen really carefully,
Sure.
was more tangible, like close to the temples and your frontal cortex. It's like a slightly more head sensation, whereas the 432, you're probably going to guess it, had more of a tingly sensation in the heart area. But more importantly, it was kind of like feeling that you were in it, like it surrounded you a bit more. And then
so it's not that you can distinguish between 440 cycles per second and 432, but you can feel it.
I mean, some people probably with absolute hearing can tell the difference, that it might be tormenting for them.
Right. But for the rank and file listener,
yeah, and I don't even know if this all is true. And I just did it, and it felt really good, and I'm going with it. I do play in 440 as well. I mean, it's like it's an added bonus when a piano is tuned down to 432.
Well, it's just interesting that multiple people would have told you that particular frequency, so that there is some thinking out there, some kind of group think that, this is a better, more in-tune way to listen to music.
There's a very, very lively discussion going on regarding this topic online, and it's slightly intense, so be warned if you're going to check it out.
Down the rabbit hole you go.
It's even linked to the Nazis, and which is, it's all, people say the weirdest things, but it's an interesting topic because it's the tip of an iceberg of something else. And I usually, when asked about it, I say, like, go have a look for yourself and see what it does to you.
What I will say is that our concert that we all tune to has climbed steadily upward over the end. Historically, in Bach's time, A was much lower. And so it's risen as our own kind of threshold of activity and the speed of life and the stress around us. It's all gone in the same direction.
It's like the loudness war that went on in music and radio, like raising, like everything needed to go up, and I think it's a good thing to bring things down again.
All right. Now, I mentioned in introducing you that today you're playing one piece from each of your 3 records. Yeah. The 3rd record, Henosis, is being billed as sort of the end of a trilogy. Did you set out to make a trilogy when you started?
Not from the start, no. That idea came to me while working on the second one, on Prehension, and I kind of realized that I had zoomed out between the first and the second record.
So the first record, Solipsism, very inward-looking.
It's basically it's very naked, very intimate, very much individual, and sort of reaching outside and reestablish a connection with the world around you. And then the second one was musically seen, and also from recording and production standpoint, slightly less intimate, more zoomed out, more mics, bigger room. Also, the pieces were more distant in a way. So you try to make sense of what happens, and that was my conclusion. And the first one had to do with my relationship to reality, and that's why I titled it solipsism at the time, which is a term from philosophy. So I thought, well, they have a relation, so let's keep with the theme. And then I was like, okay, but then there's another step, which is zoomed out even further, and it's basically leaving Earth and going into the cosmos. So that was then consciously my inspiration for my third album.
And so it's not just you. There are other musicians. There's some electronics.
Correct. Yeah.
And so having zoomed all the way out and finished this trilogy, have you started looking ahead to what you might do next?
I've started looking, but I haven't found it yet. No, there's. I mean, I'm patient. We've worked pretty hard the last couple of years, and I'm enjoying performing pieces from all the albums now, which was all done in like 5 years. And I'm hoping to get that moment of inspiration where I know, okay, this is where it needs to go.
But in the meantime, you are touring. You've got a solo show in Chicago, I guess, tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow.
And then out on the West Coast, 3 dates with ACME, the American Contemporary Music Ensemble. When they show up and you have a piano tune to 432, they all need to adjust, right?
I think we're gonna. I'm not sure actually. I played with them in New York last year and in Montreal. I think we played at 440.
Okay.
I think we did.
So you adjust to them.
Yeah, we've had it. I'm not sure because I played with Echo Collective in Europe and they have tuned down. But there's a bass clarinet which we cannot tune down. So yeah,
all right.
440. There we go. Sorry.
All right. But while you have the piano here in the tuning that you like, you want to play another piece for us? Something from the new record?
I would love to, yeah.
So Anamnesis
Yes,
is the name of this.
Yeah.
Once again, Joep Beving is my guest here in the studio, performing at this upright piano, and an excerpt from the latest album called Henosis. Once again, Joep Beving at, I was going to say at our piano. It's not our piano, at this upright piano. Boy, there are some harmonies there. They're a little different. Maybe some jazz voicings at one or two moments, and it's a very different sounding piece and a quizzical ending. It doesn't resolve totally.
No.
That's intentional.
That's intentional.
Yeah. What does anamnesis mean?
It means it's a recollection of something that you already knew, but you didn't know you already knew. And some say it's a recollection from a previous life, or trying to figure out the things that you need to figure out.
Well, then, kind of an appropriate ending then.
It's an open ending.
Yeah, absolutely. Still lots to figure out.
Yes, please.
Including what comes next. But in the meantime, there is this trilogy now complete. Should mention there's also a fourth record of remixes of some of your music, which is...
Yeah. It's called Conatus.
Really takes it in a often very different place.
Yeah.
But it's been great having you here and playing for us. Joep, thank you so much.
It's been a tremendous honor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Soundcheck.